So anyone who's been watching the news knows we live in an era where immoral values are being glamorized. And this is done by pop culture, by academia, sometimes by politics. And looks like the family unit seems to be the last frontier that is trying to push back or maintain a semblance of that morality. So today on the podcast, we are here to discuss how we can raise kids in a seemingly confused world. And to do that, I have the distinct privilege of having my brother and my friend, Mr. Becky. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
Right. So before we jump right into the crux of the conversation, I would like to know, just give us a bit of an idea about yourself and your fatherhood journey.
It's a privilege to be on this podcast with you. Yeah, maybe just a quick, rundown of myself, my fatherhood journey. I would say um, I was born in Zimbabwe. I'm born in a family of three boys, so I'm the middle child. Yeah, and my fatherhood journey, I would say, started 17 years ago well, when I got married. Let's say, but that's not when perhaps we had children. But yeah, I would say getting married was the moment where I would say my fatherhood journey started because, like the Bible says, that you become the head of the home the moment that you are joined, with your spouse. So I guess that's where it all started when my wife and I got married. We just celebrated our anniversary a few days ago. So our 17th wedding anniversary a few days ago. So yeah, and afterwards, I mean, after we got married, we had our first child, our daughter. We blessed with two children, a daughter who's age 15 and a son who's age 11. So our daughter came maybe about 1.5, 2 years later after we got married. Yeah. And then that's when perhaps the next level of fatherhood started, right?
Anyone who's watched the podcast or who has been on the podcast, the idea behind us doing this is just to hear about each other's experiences. You've been a father for 17, 15 years now. I've been a father I've been a husband for 7 years. I've been a father for less than 6. So my experience and yours is very varied. So tell me about the your idea of morality in the world we live in today.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the world has been changing very fast, and there's a lot of things that are now out there. When you look at let's say, people's moral compasses, they have changed. And I guess there is also, with the exposure comes even more temptation, comes more uh, opportunity, for exposure to, let's say, immorality. Yeah. So it's I think it's more challenging now for especially for the children growing up in this day and age of the internet, in terms of them, being um maintaining, morality. And our parents I would say, had an easier job.
I think so.
Yeah, I think our parents maybe had an easier job in a way, because they didn't need to have as many safeguards as we need with our children.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, once you are out there playing with your friends, of course, the way, let's say, we were exposed, to different things, but I think it wasn't as much as it is now. Uh, their worries perhaps were a bit less because it's more maybe of one kid who's not been raised properly in their family, so it was more of person to person interaction.
Right.
Right now it's more of the world or the web and your and your kids' interaction. So I guess that's where we have quite a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually agree. It's different in the sense that, like you just said, when it was just a child to another child,
Yeah.
you could easily judge if that child's behavior is good for your own child. If that child was badly behaved, you'd be wise enough to separate that friendship.
Right.
If the child was a proper child, you'd be able to encourage it. But these days, with random strangers on the internet, your kids could be exposed to things that you wouldn't even be able to, you have no idea, what that is. But again, with the moral compass of the world changing, what do you think, aside from the internet, what do you think is the second biggest reason why morality is being propagated faster?
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is uh, I guess there has been a change in terms of what can I say, children's rights or uh, children getting to uh, I think the children these days have got more liberty and they feel okay. I mean, it's unlike in the past whereby when you tell them don't do that, don't do this. If my parents were to tell me not to do something, I would quickly stop doing it without questioning,
Right.
you know. But I think now it's a bit different because of course it's a global world, and maybe still it may go back to the internet or go back to availability of information whereby uh, children are now exposed to the different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's also a culture thing because they are seeing different cultures, people behaving differently, and to them now they start asking questions. So if you can tell them, don't do this, they'll ask you why.
Mhm.
Maybe you are trying to correct something about which is to teach them something that is morally correct, aligned to your values. Because I guess morality also is kind of course, it's a generic term, but it's more of alignment to certain values. Yeah, so if for I mean, ours is a Christian home,
Right.
so our values are Christian values. So if you tell them, okay, we guide them along Christian values. So but they're growing up in a society where uh not all their friends are Christian. Some don't have religion, maybe not allied. Some are atheists, and they 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 they, they may start asking questions to say, okay, so uh, do I really have to do this, or do I really have to do that? At the end of the day, I guess that's the kind of world that we're living in.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Them asking those questions
Yeah,
isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think because I don't know about your upbringing, but I would hazard a guess it's similar to mine, where if your father said no, the no was a complete sentence. It
you're
was
correct.
complete. You had no reason to ask why. But we live in, like I said, we live in a world where kids get to ask why. And I think it is incumbent on us as fathers to be more informed and be more patient with explaining things to them. So, and then I think what that does for them ultimately is it gives them a basis on which to anchor their morality. I grew up, they said, don't steal.
Mhm.
Fine. Don't hang out with bad people. That was it. I didn't have the option to ask why. What are the consequences? What are the alternatives? You know, and then I know a lot of people who grew up the way I grew up and then get into the wider world and then now start having crisis of morality, crisis of faith, because their moral compass was based on do's and don'ts without any additional information as to why those things are important for you to adhere to. So I think it's not necessarily a bad thing for us to have kids who are asking questions.
I think getting questions is good that they ask, because at the end of the day, if we just give them, like you're saying, one word answers, they know, and without really explanation as to why this is bad or why this is right and why this is wrong, then that's where maybe rebellion can come in. It's easier to, but uh, I think for me, looking at morals in general, I always think it starts with me as an individual, right, before it gets to the child. Okay, if my son or my daughter listens to the way I speak to other people, I don't use any curse words, for example. I'm driving, and something happens, and I don't maybe just throw a fit and start cursing the next driver or whoever. I believe for me, right, in this day and age, that is the best way of imparting morality to our children and to the next generation, because only telling them what to do, or it's telling them, no, this is not right, or maybe or our Christian values don't align with this, the Bible does not, that it does not condones this. uh, at the end of the day, and if I live a life that is different, then they may think, okay, this is not doable, this is not practical. This guy, every time he has an opportunity, or my father or mother, every time they have an opportunity, this is what they do, they behave differently. So we are not perfect, I'm not perfect,
Of
but
course.
I think what I try to do is to walk the talk.
Right.
Yeah. So if there are instances where my son has maybe said a word, because I mean he interacts with people, friends, and so on, and then I admonish him to say, no, but this is not how we speak, right? He does not have the leverage to say, but I've heard you say
The same word.
yeah. So I guess that is the best way now, than ever before, that we can actually, impart the morals or the values that we want to pass on to the next generation, so that we create a better world. Of course, we always go back, us as Christians, to say Christ is the center of it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If I remember my son at one time saying, this friend of mine does this and he does that. He's negative, or at times he says this, and I said, fine, but you need to, show them that you're different. You need to speak differently. And one difference that you have with your friends is that you have Christ in you, which is something that should set you apart. So at least I think that sank, because the one time he said something about a friend, and then I say, okay, but you're different, and you know the reason why, and he says, yeah, yes, I do. So I guess we try.
Yes, we making progress.
Yeah, making progress. Yeah, I mean, it's a journey.
Yes. So these days, people talk about exposure therapy in the sense that me, for example, I'm scared of heights.
Uh-huh.
So people say, oh, to overcome your fear, expose yourself to that thing continuously until you get desensitized to it. But when it comes to influences on our kids, exposure therapy might be the wrong approach, in the sense that your child might have strong morals at home, but the fear of social ostracizement, social, not being accepted by her circle of friends or her peers might make them abandon those morals. How do you raise a child that is able to say no to social pressure? I don't have kids that are old enough to have that level of self-awareness, but you do. So how are you helping your kids, and perhaps someone watching might also learn from this, to be independent minded, not being, outcast, they don't interact with people, no, but at least even in the midst of bad influences, bad behavior, they're able to stand and say, no, listen, in my household we don't do this, as a Christian we don't do this, and they are confident in their agency.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one because kids are kids. I
Yeah.
mean, they interact with friends. They want to be accepted. I mean, by friends as well. So, and we've had instances for both my daughter and my son where we have identified that no, this is not really them, but maybe this is a response to some form of pressure.
Yeah.
Um, but I think at times we we celebrate the small victories when we see them actually, resisting or kind of setting themselves apart to say no, I don't think I can be a part of that. And we teach them responsibility as well to kind of own their or own their actions and decisions,
Right.
right? Instead of kind of passing it on maybe to the next individual. So we always say if it's that's what you want, own up and say, okay, I want to go out with my friends to do one, two, three things, or I want to do this. Don't always say that. My friend, I'll give an example to say at times there's the tendency maybe of them saying, okay, my friends want us to do this, right?
Yeah.
And then I ask, okay, what
Do
do
you
you
want?
want? Right. I want to go with my friends. I say, yes, on that, right? Otherwise, if you transfer responsibility, when something goes wrong, then you're going to say, my friends wanted us,
Yeah.
but did you want? So I guess we are quite clear when we are parenting, both my wife and I, that we want them to own their actions. Right? If something goes wrong, and they were a part of it, then they have to own up,
Right.
and say, okay, I participated in this and things went wrong. Uh, by doing that, then it makes them better people because they take responsibility for their
Right.
actions. I think yeah, so far, as I said, it's a journey. There have been some victories and of course some,
Yeah.
some losses here and there. But I guess that is what we try to instill in them. And I mean, for our daughter, I remember she actually at one, when we arrived, she was in another school, and but she did not gel in there very well because the friends that she was making there were good friends, but maybe at times they were not really aligning very well with the values. But it was difficult for her to kind of always, antagonize and be
The
and
odd one out.
yeah, until she asked us to move her from that particular school. And then for it was not a cheap decision because moving anything, here
Is
is quite expensive and things. But we respected that decision because we felt like, okay, this is a person now who knows what they want, and they feel like if I continue in this environment, I will not be able maybe to always resist and stand for my values. But it's better maybe that I've tried, but it's better that I move. So I guess when you see that, you start thinking, okay, this is a person who is also trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
stand up for what
Their values.
for their values.
Do you think it would have been easier if you were raising the kids at home?
I don't think it would have been really that easier, because as we were saying, it's a global world.
I noticed something when I first moved as well. Not to this country, to another country. The kids there became very recalcitrant because the laws are very, very stringent on parents. You don't discipline your children, or there's so much you can do in terms of discipline. And then because of that, the kids found a very strong loophole to be badly behaved, knowing that there's no consequences for their bad behavior. So that's why I'm asking, if we're back home where the laws exist to protect kids, but it's a bit more relaxed compared to where we are living right now. That's why I'm asking.
I still feel the same because I think the type of disciplining that we are inclined to perhaps is not uh, that of being very, very heavy-handed,
Right.
of heavy-handedness. So we believe in engagement. I believe in engaging with the person and making sure that they understand why should we do things this way. I mean, one day, very soon, these are going to be independent adults and they have to make decisions. In as much as we can try to be heavy handed and so on, there has to be, there's a delicate balance. As I said to you, there's opportunity for rebellion and so on. But when you engage with the child and when you try to, lead by example. Of course, you don't. There are victories and losses along the way. It's not perhaps a really perfect kind of parenting strategy, but I think it works better. It's got a good balance in terms of them also understanding you as a parent. So yeah, I think it wasn't really going to be much different. Actually, maybe it could be a bit better here.
Okay.
Why? Because I believe I am, especially me, because I work in the humanitarian sector, and at times my job gets really busy, really tense, and I wouldn't maybe get as much time as I get with them when I'm here, because here, even no matter how busy I am, I'm more engaged as a parent at home.
Right.
Uh, there's some things that we count as disadvantages in Europe,
Yeah.
but they help you be more present.
True.
The fact that you cannot get maybe as much house help as you would get back home, it
Right.
means you are with them, you can clean the house with them.
And they see you do it.
They see you doing it. Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising for them to see me cleaning the house, sweeping, putting some order. It's such that right now, even my son does not really find it weird for him, let's say, to help in the kitchen, maybe
Right.
with the cleaning up.
Compared to if we're raised back.
Yeah, because back home, would likely be having someone to help us do some of those things.
Right.
So I think one positive about raising kids here is that you become more present in terms of doing things together. Yeah, doing things together. So they also get to see you walking the talk. If you say clean your room, they will see you cleaning your own
Yours.
room. Yeah, they will see you tidying up. They will see you. They won't see maybe like a helper coming and cleaning up after you and things like that. So I think it's got its up and downs, but in terms of opportunity of really providing that kind of compass and leadership. I think it's it gives one that opportunity, at least in my case. Situations are different, circumstances are different for different families, but in my case, that has been one of the upsides of being here.
Okay, so talk to me about TV and internet access control. Do you place a strict regimen on internet access for your kids? Because obviously, like I said earlier, that's the biggest, source of bad ideas.
I wish I could actually eh, put more restrictions, but we do have some form of restrictions.
Yeah.
Monitoring, maybe remote monitoring of activity maybe on the phone. My daughter is the one that's got a phone. My son not yet. Because he's still 11, so he's yet to graduate to having his own phone. He's got a laptop that he uses, but we do put, like, let's say, time limits. For example, PlayStation time limit, you've got, let's say, maximum 3 hours, something like that. During the week, there's also limits that we put during the school days, so that the access is kind of controlled. But I mean, I think the lines are pretty fine now, because, for example, in terms of screen time, these guys, all their homework comes on Google Classroom.
Exactly.
If you say, okay, don't use your laptop,
You
don't.
assignment.
Yeah, and you can't be always checking to say, are you on Google Classroom? Are you on YouTube? Are you doing this? That's why I think at the end of the day, what's important is to try and instill those values that will allow them to be able to
Self-regulate.
self-regulate. That's the word. So you can't be there all the time. I've always argued with people at times to say, fine, we can put everything, VPN, whatever, see what they've been saying. But the moment they go out of the house, right, they have a friend who has a phone that is unrestricted, right? So if they want to, whatever they are viewing and everything, they can do it even from third party. So we can put as much controls as possible in-house, but I think the best thing that we can do is to kind of create a self-regulating individual, someone who will know their limits, and be able to. They will get temptations. Yes, they're individuals, they're people, but I think the self-regulation part is what is important, because we cannot be omnipresent. There's no way. I mean, but of course, one thing that we also try to emphasize on is for them to get one good quality sleep, right?
Yep.
So at times, like for my son, definitely when he's going to bed, his laptop is in our room. He has no access to gadgets overnight,
Okay.
so that he can sleep. Yeah. For my daughter, we have a bit of flexibility, but of course, at times we do regulate to say, okay, bring your gadgets. But she's older now. So at times she may want to wake up, study, and things like that. So it gets a bit tricky. But for the younger one, definitely, when you are going to bed, we retrieve the gadgets so that at least they get good quality sleep. Because I'm one person who believes that good quality sleep is one of the biggest things that an individual should have, so that they are productive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a system of restoration? By that I mean, us as children of God, we always or sometimes fall short of his standards, and we have a system where we can go back and say, "Oh, Dada, we are sorry. We will take steps to change our behavior and do better. And the same obviously applies to our kids. So do you have a system where if they drop the ball, they have a pathway back to good graces, and at this step they have to take or go through to um be fully restored, if that makes sense?
Well, I wouldn't say maybe a system of restoration, but if they do something that is out of line, definitely we make sure that they understand that there are consequences to going out of line,
Right.
and obviously you can put certain let me say. Restrictions, if we have agreed on this and then you try to circumvent the rules or break the rules, then fine, we can put some restrictions, and say, okay, no, because you did this, then we are going to limit 1, 2, 3. But as we said, I mean, the best thing is self-regulation. So you give the person the liberty to to say, okay, you have the access, or you can do this. But when you see them failing to self-regulate,
Yeah.
then you help them to self-regulate until such a time, I guess, when they are older, they would have developed that that strength or that habit.
Yeah.
What is important now, I guess, is to try and make sure that all that we're trying to do is to make these small steps develop into habits, right? That become difficult to break later on in life. There's one book that I like and I keep reading continuously, called Atomic Habits,
Atomic habit.
by James Clear. It's a it's a book I would recommend because it shows you that you don't really have to make big steps.
Small incremental
Yeah,
steps.
small changes is what matters for you to make the big change that you want. So the small changes, when you are able to wake up every day and make your bed, that on its own, it becomes a habit such that no one really has to tell you that make your bed. It becomes muscle memory.
Right.
So I think those are some of the things that we need to try and instill, to say, okay, these small changes, it's work in progress, but I guess that's what can help at the end of the day.
Now, as we round up the conversation, if there's a father watching right now whose child has, um, like they say in Christendom, gone astray,
Yeah.
what would you recommend they do? Because obviously, at some point, the child gets to a point where they have agency.
Mhm.
You can't control them. They have their own life now. But a child has gone maybe out of the way you would have ideally like them to go, and then you don't have any way of forcing them back in line.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend fathers who are perhaps in that boat do?
Uh, I mean, being a Christian, I guess the first thing would be, one, we need to pray for our children.
Obviously, right?
Yeah, yeah, pray for them, because they are God's creation, and we believe that God has good plans for them. Yeah, and two, we walk the talk, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, to say, um, kids have got to learn from us, learn from what we do, as parents, how we carry ourselves, how we handle ourselves. If my kids see me committed maybe to my quiet time with God, or to prayer, praying together, they know that these are our values as a family. So for them, they would maybe naturally incline to that. Um, as the proverb says that we teach our children the way
Should go
to go at a young age, and then they will not depart from it
when they grow up.
when they grow old. Of course, we see some kids departing from the way, but I guess the best maybe that I can say is we do our part,
Yeah.
right? Um, I'm privileged that I was raised by a father who really, did his best in terms of bringing the best out of us as as his children. Very nice man. Uh, he didn't have, let me say, strict Christian kind like values to say, do this, God, but the way he loved us and his conduct really brought us up as to be relatively, well groomed kind of gentlemen, the three of us. So I always say at times that whenever I want to do something mean
Yeah.
to my kids, I ask myself what my father would have done if he was in my situation. And definitely he would act out of love. He would act out of love because even if he didn't have much of the means, uh, let's say, was it financial or whatever, but he went out of his way to make sure that we were well taken care of. And by him doing that, I feel like we are indebted to the next generation to do,
Same.
yeah, to do better if we can. So I, I, there's opportunity, as I say, to always to improve from the ones that have gone before us. But that does not mean if one was brought up with by a father who didn't do the best job, they can't start from somewhere, because I guess we need to start from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to start from somewhere. If you didn't have that opportunity, then now it's up to you to start the cycle, so that your kids would say, okay, I was brought up by a different man, a different father, a father who did all this for me, and I believe I should also, pass it on to the next generation. Then we can build a better society by doing that.
When the family unit stays together, when the family unit takes up their responsibility of raising children, of passing on values intentionally, ultimately, who benefits the most? Society. So if you're watching this and you're a parent, I would want to crave your indulgence to be more intentional with how you pass on your moral values, your cultural values to your kids. So that way, we all as a collective will have a better life for ourselves. Mr. Becky, thank you so much for coming on the pod. And I look forward to having a conversation with you and your wife on the same episode in the future.
Thank you very much for having me, Calvin. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. The pleasure was all mine. Broski, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.